Hello again, I am Blunty. The MetaConnect 2-day event is still a day away from actually happening, but that has not stopped some media outlets who've had access to a pre-release hands-on with the soon-to-be-released MetaQuest 3 VR headset and its new controllers from accidentally spilling the beans a little bit too early. At least a couple of outlets so far have accidentally shoved articles live a full day before the impressions and review embargo will presumably lift. Whoopsie doodle. And it's at this point too, I'll remind you again, just how untrustworthy most, if not all, of the early access impressions and reviews and published opinions from MetaConnect attendees will be. And if you think it's outrageous that I'm impugning the honor of perhaps some of your favorite VR content creator specialists, you really do need to watch that video that I published last week. Because, but what we've seen leaked so far are more first impressions based on like an hour and a half playtime, probably also heavily guided by a Meta employee if my own personal experience with such time-limited demos is any indication. So it's never going to be all that detailed or contextual. But, you know, it is something. And while there's a few screaming inaccuracies and flat-out untruths in one of the articles, probably down to the writer in question having very little technical experience when it comes to VR or gaming in general, I think, but we'll go through those together in a minute. Before that, we've also had some other images leak, like this one, which is apparently an in-store display for the Quest 3, supposedly taken at a store at some unnamed military base. There's this, which is obviously just one of the official marketing shots, but what is interesting here is the hand straps. They're knuckle-style straps, which we haven't seen yet. There's a few variations of this style of strap around for the Quest 2. In fact, I reviewed a couple of them, I think, but they're all third-party accessories. This seems to indicate that there's now a first-party version of the knuckle straps for the Quest 3's new controllers. This shot, again, likely an official promo material thing, shows a charging stand, possibly just a storage stand with no inherent charging, but it's probably a charging stand. But what's more interesting is the colored strap and facial interface pad, which, I don't know, somehow makes it look kind of cheap and more toy-like than the clean white crispy lines of the default one, but hey, options are options. Intriguingly, there's also this shot of what seems to be VR chat loading into a world, but using the color camera pass-through view. Is this just how menus and load screens are going to look? I find it unlikely that VR chat will be seeing a mixed reality implementation on the Quest 3 version of their software, whatever that means. I feel like VR chat in AR mode kind of goes against the whole vibe of immersion of what is possibly the world's most popular and enduring VR software, VR chat. And then there's this, from one of two major leaks, seemingly confirming the long-rumoured release date of October the 10th. And from the automatic translation of the Japanese article it links to, it speaks in the past tense about the MetaConnect event, and states that MetaQuest 3 will be released on October 10th, 2023, and reservations are scheduled to start from September 28th. That is the second day of the event. Two models are listed, the 128GB model we already knew about, but also confirms the size of the second model, which we knew about, but had no solid info about what size its internal storage would be, which now seems to be 512GB. From here, they talk about specs like the Snapdragon XR2 Gen 2 CPU it uses, software backwards compatibility with the Quest 2, and the increase in RAM from the Quest 2's 6GB to a full 8GB. Remember that number? We'll come back to it in a minute. And for I think the first time, we get some actual numbers for the field of view. Viewing angle is 110 degrees horizontally and 96 degrees vertically. The maximum refresh rate is 90 Hz at the time of release, but an upgrade to 120 Hz is currently being tested. Similar kind of thing happened with the Quest 2. It released with 75, am I remember that correctly? 75, but then later got an update to full 120 Hz through software. I would have thought the Quest 3 was going to launch with 120 Hz, but coming back to those field of view numbers, that is going to be noticeably larger than the Quest 2, which is 104 horizontal. And I know 104 to 110 doesn't sound like much on paper, but if you've never tried multiple VR headsets back to back, trust me, it makes a difference. That's a little number for a noticeable difference in your peripheral vision. And this will most likely be down to the new pancake-style lenses, which is also why it's thinner and lighter and all that sort of stuff, versus the Fresnel lenses that the Quest 2 uses, which will also mean a significant step up in clarity, particularly, less of that ringing stuff. They also claim, in addition, if you purchase the 120GB model of MetaQuest 3, you will receive the retail version of the VR game Asgard's Wrath 2. And if you purchase the 512GB model, you will receive the same game and 6 months of subscription service, MetaQuest Plus. We don't know if this is a global thing or something specific to the Japanese market, as that's who this article is targeted at, but that's interesting. Now, the second leaked article is less technical and more experiential, and also, as I mentioned before, littered with incorrect information and mistakes and misunderstandings, thanks largely to the ignorance of its writer, whose post-history for their publication, the Evening Standard, a London-based daily free newspaper, consists almost entirely of thin articles about television shows. Not tech, not gaming, not VR, TV. But we're told by this Vicky Jessup that this event yet to happen, that the journalists attending Meta's preview event last week were told that this was the most powerful headset that the team has ever built, sporting double graphics performance and 30% increase in display resolution over the Quest 2. That's a really weird way to phrase what that is, but fine. And then detailing some impressions from a claimed hour and a half or so with the brand new headset on her face. They talked about it being slimmed down and light, which we already knew. A little about the Y-shaped default head strap, meaning it's going to be a lot more comfortable and easy to wear, which is nice because the original Quest's default head strap was awful, and I immediately, and I mean same day that I got it, swapped it out with a much more robust official accessory, the Pro Strap. Then they went on to talk about the full color camera pass-through, and on that they say, despite making you look slightly like a bug-eyed alien, whatever the hell that is supposed to mean, these pieces of tech work wonders. The camera feed back a digital image of what the outside world looks like to the screen inside the headset, neatly sidestepping the age-old problem of walking blindly into bookcases. I'm sorry, what? The age-old problem of walking into bookcases? The age-old problem? What on God's boiling earth are you blithering on about, you half-wit? VR is barely a decade old as a consumer device, barely 3 years old when you consider it barely made waves for the general consumers before the marketing around the Quest 2 happened. Age-old? Also, every modern VR headset, including the Quest 2, has a boundary system to stop you walking into bookcases. A system that works in full VR mode and not just the pass-through mode, by the way. They talk a little about the new AR features, like being able to map out your space, including the furniture, and place virtual objects on and around your furniture, and things like you could put down a working radio player. A radio player. Okay, Boomer, let's all listen to the radio.
Tune in weekdays at 5 p.m. for 3 hours of non-stop Facebook memes about queer people being confusing to boomers. I don't get it!
She then talks about the infrared sensors, by which I can only assume she's talking about the depth sensor camera, which does work using IR light, but that's really not the same thing as IR sensors. No. But their article continues, whether I want it to or not. The other thing that's also worth noting is Meta's new double tap feature. It pauses any game and brings you back into mixed reality from VR. That sounds amazing, doesn't it? What a useful feature. But it's also not a new feature either. The double tap on the side of the VR headset to activate pass-through mode has existed for literally years now. I use it all the damn time on my Quest 2. Meta has delivered a slightly souped-up version of the original controllers. These brand new versions, dubbed the Touch Plus, connect to the headset via Bluetooth and boast their own tiny tracking cameras that make for a more accurate and reliable playing experience. In practice, that means fewer glitches, and certainly I didn't find any. No. Wrong again. The new Quest 3 touch controllers do not have their own tiny cameras. The controllers for the Quest Pro had those, but these ones don't. The Quest 3 controllers still rely on the headset tracking them, locking onto rings of IR lights on the controllers themselves. The controllers don't have a literal ring anymore, but there's still IR lights around the little face plate thingy on it. This is not secret information that was revealed just at the event. We've known about that for quite some time as well. And apparently, according to this TV blogger, they fit into the hand like fingers fit a glove. Which tells me Vicky has never so much as had gloves described to her, much less experienced them as handwear. Because that's not how these controllers fit into your hands. Like fingers fit a glove. That's not even a thing people say, Vicky. Were you thinking of the idiom fits like a glove, perhaps? Were you trying to pretend you're a writer by rephrasing that and making it nonsense? But then we get to the specs, which one would think were provided to her by Meta. So, they'd be rather less filled with gibberish and mistakes, right? Of note in the specs chart, a stated 3-hour battery life, seemingly up from the 2+ the Quest 2 promise, and reasonably reliably delivers. Although Vicky's comparison chart shows the Quest 2 with a 3-hour battery life also. Officially, the Oculus listed it as 2 to 3 hours, not 3 hours. The display resolution and weight we already knew, but it's worth noting them here. I'll just put them on screen for you, who cares? Interestingly, this article lists the RAM as 12 gigabytes, not the 8 that the Japanese publication claimed. Considering how many other mistakes and how much ignorance there was in this article so far, I'd trust the 8 gigabyte number first. Be great to find out it's 12 though. Maybe the larger storage version has more RAM. Wouldn't make a lot of sense for them to do that, but maybe. And on the comparison chart, it only lists the Quest 2 as having a 128 gigabyte model, despite there also being a 256 gigabyte model. By the way, Vicky, have you heard of Google? Little research. Fact checking. No? Too busy writing blogs about soap operas, I suppose. I was so disappointed by this article. I was so excited to read some hands-on for the Quest 3, but this poorly written article, full of errors and mistakes, written by a TV show blogger for people who still read one of London's free newspapers. Who is this even for? I don't know. It's misinforming them, whoever it's for. But hey, soon enough, we'll have more. Likely a lot more coverage out there because the embargo will probably lift in about a day, and Zuckerberg's collective will surely be pushing this stuff hard because Zuckerberg really, really, really wants his metaverse to be a thing. The MetaConnect event kicks off at 3 a.m. local time for me, so I'll doubt whether I'll bother watching the keynote live. I can barely stand to hear what Zuckerberg has to say, let alone watch him on camera, awkwardly cringe about in front of a camera, and for a while it's just painful to watch. Funny kind of painful, but still painful. But I do plan on covering independently and free of Meta's controlling oppression, ding, the Quest 3. I've started to reach out to some accessory makers as well, including some prescription lens inserts for you glasses wearers out there, so stay tuned for that. Sub, bell, do all the things. But thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this as interesting or as entertaining as I did to make. I am Bloody. I'll catch you next time, and thank you as always to the patrons scrolling up above there, whose above beyond support is fantastic. And I think this month I'll spend a little bit of that Patreon money on some Quest 3 accessories. Third-party head straps, I think. That's always a pretty go-to. I really like the ones that flip up. I miss that from my Windows Mixed Reality headset. I want the ones that flip up again. It was so convenient. Although with the color pass-through cameras, do we even need that? Still takes a lot of pressure off your face, though.